So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Anat Peri. Anat is a transformational coach and creator of Training Camp for the Soul. She's got over 15 years of experience in developmental work, and I have had the great pleasure of being a graduate of Training Camp for the Soul, and my life was completely transformed by the work that we did, and the tools that I learned from you to be able to overcome the ways that I was holding myself back. And so I'm so thrilled to be able to share Anat with the people that are in our audience. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, of course, Jesse. Pleasure. Great to be here. And thanks for all the listeners that are tuning in.
I'm so excited. I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, so I'm thrilled. So I'd like to just jump in with how did you get started in this work?
Trying to find myself. You know, I'm 40 years old, and like you shared, I've been in the self-development space for about 15 years. And so 15 years ago is when I started, because I wasn't born this way. I have definitely had my lack of self-love, codependency, struggling with finding a purpose, financial struggles, fights with my mom. I think actually that's what started it, was like my mom and I were always butting heads. And then we finally did this self-development workshop together when I was 25. We did it together. Wow. And I remember saying, my mom was like, I'll pay for it. I'm like, good. I'm like, you're going to see that you're wrong and I'm right. So very much in my ego at the time, thinking that I knew it all. So I guess I have my mother to thank for getting me on this path. So my mother to thank for being here on this planet, right? So sometimes our most dear and near relationships are our toughest, right?
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Yeah. On that, like the relationships with our parents are the toughest and the ones that we learn probably the most from, especially as we're in the formative years. That was your teaching about how we learn from our parents, what is different to what I've ever heard before. And it was one of the things that really stood out the first time I heard you speak.
Yeah, so formative years, meaning years up into the age 7. And the reason that they're so formative is because your brain is not fully developed yet. Your logic brain isn't developed at all. And so you're in a state, your brain waves are in a state, a slower state, a theta state, which is the state of hypnosis. So that's why it's so easy to learn things at that age, right? To learn language, to learn multiple languages, to learn to eat. Like we learn all these things because we're a sponge for information. And for anything that we're exposed to. Basically, life occurs to us like a movie that we're watching, and whatever is showing up on the screen, whatever we feel, whatever we hear, whatever we see, we absorb as the reality. And so if we look in those formative years, it's mainly mom and dad, hopefully, or mom or dad, that are there with you, that you're spending the most time with. But to go back to what you're saying here, I do really want people to understand how much who you are, or who you learn to be, I should say, who you learn to be comes from what mom and dad model to you. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with mom to give people a little understanding of what mom is the role model for and how this happens. So I'm going to come out and say it, and then I'll give the explanation of why. So mom represents an extension of yourself. Mom is the role model for yourself. It's where you learn how to do anything or be anything for yourself. And so those of you that are like, well, where did you get to this? So I'm going to take you back to your birthday, the day you were born, and you came out of mom, and mom held you for the first time. And she said, son, daughter, I am your mommy. And you heard, wah, 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 wah. You didn't have language yet. You had no idea what she was saying. You could barely see, and you didn't know that who you were looking at was your mother. But what you did know was that the energy that you felt familiar. It felt like the energy you just spent 9 months in. So it felt like you. It felt familiar. It felt like home. And so in that moment, you view this thing that's walking at you as you. This is me. This is home. This is an extension of myself, which, by the way, you were connected by the umbilical cord. And so from that moment, it's instinctual that mom models that self for you, that it's you. And so whether it's how she treats you, that you learn something from that, or how she treats herself. So for example, if mom was always taking care of the house, of you, doing everything, busy, running around, yes, she took care of your needs, and maybe some of the learning you got there was, that you're nurtured and you're cared for. But if you never saw her sitting down, taking a break, and doing anything for herself, you also might have learned not to do things for yourself and to expect others to do things for you. So there's many layers and levels and angles to look at how you learned what you learned about yourself, what you were imprinted with. Mm-hmm. But my invitation to all of you at this moment is, if you're struggling with something with yourself, for yourself, whether it's how you talk to yourself, to taking time to self-care, to your self-confidence, ask yourself this question: what did mom model to me in this area? Is this what I learned from mom? Was mom like this? And if she was, is it what I saw from her, what I heard from her, what I felt from her? And if it was what you felt from her, is it how she made you feel about yourself? Or is this how she felt about herself, and you absorbed that energy from her as the way to be? And after serving hundreds of clients, I can tell you there's so much accuracy in this. My clients can tell me something and I'll be like, yeah, so your mom was like that, huh? Or your mom treated you that way. How did you know that? Like, because it never fails. So, and unfortunately, sometimes the answer is mom and dad were like this. So you got with a double whammy of it. And then there's two angles to look at what it is that you learned. So that's mom. And mom is not on trial here. Mom also learned this some way. And sometimes, I'll also say this, you either copy or you rebel. So if you're like, oh, my mom wasn't like that at all, she was the complete opposite. Like, so something happened that had you decide, I'm never gonna be like that. Mm-hmm. So what do? You rebel, the complete opposite. But neither one of those, copying or rebelling, neither one of them are you. Most of the time, the rebelling is a survival strategy. It's, I'm never gonna let this happen. And so your focus is always on that never happening, which is surviving something, as opposed to here's who I choose to be, and being more in the creative mindset. So, which is the journey that I take people on, moving from survival to creation. Yeah. So that's mom. So let's talk about dad now. So dad walks into the labor room, holds you for the first time, and says, son, daughter, I'm your daddy. And again, you heard wah, 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 wah. And you don't know that this bearded, hairy man, maybe, that you're looking at, that it's your dad. But I imagine that at least the first time that your dad held you, that he was blissed out, that he was feeling so much endorphins and love and just this very high vibration of delicious energy. And that's what you felt when he held you. And it was your first experience of love, of something outside of you loving you. Yes, mom loved you too, but mom was in that energy with you the whole time that you were in the womb. So it didn't feel new or familiar. It felt like home. This felt new. This felt different. This felt like not you. This felt different than the energy you just spent 9 months in. And so in that moment, dad became everything that's not you, which is the world, which is others, which is, oh my God, I love this feeling. Love. Wow, this feels so good. I want more of this. Will it keep coming back? And so there's this relationship we have to our fathers, where this is your first experience of love by something that's not you. So we put our fathers on a pedestal, whether you're aware of it or not. And either they live up to it or they break our heart because they don't live up to what that first initial experience was. But we're always wanting that. And so father becomes the role model for the world, for others, for relationship with others, for vulnerability, courage, and the relationship with the ultimate father, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. Because how do we see the universe or God? Well, is it going to be here for me? Is it here for me? And with mom, there was an expectation that she's always going to feed me, nurture me, be here for me. With dad, it's like he would come and go. And every time he would come back, it's like, oh, this thing that's not me is here for me. And so the experience that I've seen with many of my clients, that their fathers weren't around, they were absent, or parents were divorced, and dad would say, oh, I'll see you this weekend, and then not show up or cancel, is that they really struggle with trusting in a universe, trusting in a God, trusting that something outside of them is actually supporting them, is going to be here for them. And so that's what father models. And so again, take a look at your life. If you struggle with having a relationship with God or the universe, ask yourself, what did I learn from my father in this? Whether it's by what he showed me, what I saw, what I heard, or what I felt. How he made me feel by, let's say, not being around. So for example, my dad, my parents are still happily married, but my father worked 16 hours a day running a hotel. And so he'd leave early in the morning and get home late at night. And maybe he'd have a day off on the weekends and we'd go to the beach with my brother. And so love, if he represents love in the world, wasn't there for me most of the time. And so how that imprinted me was, I'm invisible, I don't matter, and men or the world will always choose something else before me. So that's some of the quote unquote developmental trauma that I experienced from my dad always working. Also, at least in the culture here in the United States, there's this men are supposed to provide, right? Men are the providers. So energetically, as I was doing my own inner work around all this, having my dad always be working also energetically felt like he didn't trust or believe that he could just be and that the universe would support him. So, yeah, some of my deepest wounds and things I needed to heal and limiting beliefs that I needed to clear out were around trusting God. Like I always like believed that there was like this higher power of the universe, but I didn't behave in my life in a way that showed that I have faith, that the universe has my back, that I'm supported. And so that was a deep root that took a while to release. But when I did, it was like I'm ready to just completely surrender, go on this road trip with God, as I call it, and see how much it's a co-creation, and that I'm not the driver. I'm just the passenger along for the ride. But I get to dictate where I want to go, and the journey may be bumpy or maybe straight. Just don't know. So I think it was one of the biggest powerful lessons that I gained from unlearning what I learned and giving myself the right learning. So anyway, little side note story there. But yeah, so take a look, those of you listening, at your life. If Father represents this world, others, like if you have some examples, if you struggle with trusting others, feeling safe with others, yeah, what did you learn from the time with your dad? Also, what did you learn about relationships? When you look at how mom and dad interacted together, how is the world interacting with myself, right? We could replace mom and dad with the world and self. What did you learn that's possible in relationships from that? As well as how dad, also known as the love of your life, spent time with you. What did you learn? Is love there for you? So that's the invitation. And it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, those of you listening are probably having some popcorn moments right now, some ahas. And yeah, stage one of transformation is awareness. So now you're at awareness. there's 4 more steps. There's 5 stages. So, but awareness it's a good place to start.
It's so powerful. I'm still like, it blows my mind thinking back to where I was and when I first heard that. Suddenly, like you say, it's like light bulbs going off. I'm like, oh my God, now how do I fix it? But that's where this work's so important. It's like you said, the first step is realizing that there's a problem. And I think I was in that place when I first heard you talking about this. Was like, I realized I was living this pattern and I was having these really dysfunctional relationships and I was having issues with money. And there was all of these things that I was like, I realized that there's something dysfunctional happening. I had come to the awareness that I hadn't resolved stuff with my parents, but I had no idea what step to take. And going through training camp for the soul gave me literally a step-by-step like roadmap and all the tools to then start breaking down all of those things, working through the forgiveness, repatterning my beliefs, and so that now, like I feel I'm a completely different person to what I was, and it blows my mind. So anyway, again, that's another tangent. Another thing that really, because we have these, obviously we've learned these patterns from our parents, and then we have these traumas that, like you say, like having, it's something, it's not sort of necessarily major like abuse or anything like that. It's like small things, like your parent might have walked out of the room when you were a 2-year-old and you felt abandoned, and that is something that's held in your body. But we learn these coping mechanisms because of that to protect ourselves. And you teach about something called protectors. So I'd love you to sort of explain what they are.
Yeah, sure. And before I jump into that, I want to speak into what you shared of like, it's not a big trauma. So I like to distinguish, like there's like a big T trauma, right? Like abuse, which is, or going through a broken home, divorce, things like that. That it's like a pivotal moment in your life. But then what we all have is what I call developmental trauma. So there's certain things that we needed in order to develop and function well as adults, specifically in the areas of childhood development, which is your ability to express your needs and wants, know what you need and want, set limits and boundaries with yourself and others, know how to connect to your experience and others, self-esteem and responsibility. So did mom and dad, quote unquote, teach you? These are the 5 subjects. Did they model to you something that gave you the functional learning or dysfunctional learning? Right? If they didn't know how to give themselves what they needed, mom was always taking care of others and never did anything for herself. And yeah, there might have been a gap in learning there. So that's exactly what you're speaking to. Or like you said, there's a moment where mom totally forgot to pick you up from soccer practice, and you didn't have a cell phone back then. And 30 minutes later, she remembered, and you sat there all alone. And in that moment, like, you had an experience, and instead of knowing, because you didn't have knowledge yet, you didn't have logic yet, instead of knowing that everything was okay, you might have had a different experience, and you didn't know how to deal with what you were feeling. So you had to, in that moment, you're programmed for survival, come up with some way to survive whatever's happening. So what happens is, it's like, think of it like an open loop that got redirected to some way to survive as opposed to getting complete with it. And so the importance, or what I guide people through, is completing those open loops. And sometimes there's a exact memory. Oh my God, I remember the incident when dad got upset that we weren't ready to go and spend time with him, so he just left the house and didn't come back, or whatever, right? Sometimes people remember the incidents, and it's great if they do, because there's more to work with. But what you're speaking about, as far as the body holding the memory, the cellular memory is there, the energy is there, and I've worked with hundreds of clients that don't need to remember. You don't need to have a memory. As long as you're connected to whatever the trigger is, and have a whole process that I take people through, uncovering, identifying what the trigger is, what the belief is, what the limiting belief is, and then being able to identify where you're holding that in your body. So you don't need the memories. You can just work with that. Now, touching on what you said about protectors, and everyone take a moment to just take a deep breath. So protectors, I like calling them that, because it really shows that they are there as a way, they were formed there as a way to protect us from experiencing and feeling whatever it is that we're experiencing. So some of those protectors, common ones, are storytelling. So people that instead of talking about what they're feeling, they're more telling the story of it. Um, so it keeps them removed from that. Uh, Crossing your arms, especially when you're in a fight with someone, it's like you're protecting yourself. You're not being open to the experience. Fidgeting. So if you're sitting there and you always need to play with your hair or your hands or move, soft, what I call soft talk. So using a lot of language like maybe, I'll try, possibly, like, uh, just, yeah, or talking in negations where you're speaking in what you don't want as opposed to what you do because you don't feel safe to say what it is that you do want. Um, Using food to feel better. Um, what are some of the other ones?
Exercise was a big one for me.
Oh yeah, yeah. How many of you use exercise when it's like, I'm so mad or I'm so this, I'm just gonna go to the gym. And it's like you think that you're moving that energy with that. You're really distracting yourself from it, right? Is that your experience?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other big ones for you?
Yeah. So for me, the big ones were fidgeting, storytelling, food, and exercising. Like they were
Huh.
they were the big ones. And I think being a coach, I see a lot of people that are in the gym all the time, using that as their protector. And when I started introducing breathing exercises into classes, the number of people that would literally say, I cannot do this, because it made them stay still. And they're like, I start thinking, I cannot sit still and breathe. And we have a problem.
Yeah. Another, avoiding eye contact.
Yeah.
And saying, I don't know. How many people are so quick to say, I don't know, and not even give themselves a chance to see that they do know. So my clients know when they say, I don't know, what do I say?
But what if you did know?
Yeah, and if you did know, exactly. And then laughing or sarcasm when it's not appropriate. Like, yeah, when you're not, it's not actually something funny, it's because you're uncomfortable. And then another big one is asking why. And people get stuck in why? They're trying to figure out why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? Instead of just feeling it. So I call it analysis paralysis. So when you're analyzing and asking why, it's paralyzing you. It's keeping you from feeling what's there. You know, if you ask a 1-year-old, why are you crying? You're not going to get an answer. It's just a form of energy release. It's a way to move energy. Do you ever ask yourself, why am I happy?
Yeah.
Why am I joyful? Why am I excited? No, but we've been, society and sometimes our parents, our upbringing has programmed us that there's negative emotions. Why am I angry? Why am I sad? Why am I anxious? And like good emotions. So, and my invitation to all of you is to see all of it as just energy, as just sensation in the body and being with it at the level of sensation. So that ties into the next thing, which is, okay, I have these protectors, storytelling, exercise, all that. And they're protectors because when do you need protection? When you don't feel what?
You don't feel safe.
When you don't feel safe, right? So the practice to relieve yourself from needing to turn to these protectors, to use these protectors, is learning ways to feel safe, to be in the body. And so I'm going to teach you guys this quick little practice here. And it's about getting congruency between our body, our mind, and our body language. So they all say something, right? They're all a way to express what you're experiencing. You could be sitting next to someone and they're frowning, and you'll be like, and you just know by their expression, their body language, how they're feeling. Um, uh, if someone is sitting a particular way, you can know. I mean, if you don't feel safe, how do you sit?
Yeah, you're going to be closed.
You're going to be closed, maybe even your knees are up, right? When someone doesn't feel safe, they're going to protect the most important part of their body, their heart, their organs. And so if you do feel safe, how are you going to sit?
In an open,
Straight back, straight spine, open, palms up, like you're ready to receive. So the first way to signal to your body that you don't need a protector is to sit in a way that shows that you are safe and open to receiving. Now, how do you breathe when you're afraid?
and short, fast breaths, often through the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Or you hold your breath. Some people freeze. They don't breathe at all. And it's usually into the chest, right? Yeah, like that panic. Oh my God. So same thing. So getting congruency here, how would one breathe if they knew they were safe?
Big, full, deep breaths, filling.
Deep breath into the belly, into the diaphragm. And so let's practice this. Now, instead of starting with the inhale, start with an exhale. Exhale all the air out of your mouth, because you're not going to get much out if you're blowing it out of your nose. But I want you to really empty out your balloon. Empty out. Get it all out. Get that belly button all the way in. Keep pushing all the air out. When you think you don't have more, you'd be amazed how much air you hold. And now, once you've gotten it all out, start with filling through the nose, the root, and the belly, all the way up the spine, even to the top of your head. I know you don't actually breathe in there, but just imagine, picture it. Feeling that belly, feeling your ribs expand out. And then let it out slowly. And now just inhale, exhale out of your nose. Now there's like, once you've released all that air that might have been frozen in there, stuck in there, you can start to focus on breathing into your belly and your diaphragm. So how you know you're breathing into your diaphragm, and for some people this area is really tight and stuck, is you'll notice your rib cage moving outwards. So then just soft like breaths, like deep inhale, counting. Inhale 6, you can even hold at the top for a second or two, and then exhale, another 6 seconds out. Yeah. And so already that starts to drop and lower your nervous system back to a parasympathetic state. So now we got the body language, we have the breath, all showing that you're safe. Lastly is to occupy the monkey mind, because it's tuning in to some station, and most likely it's running a chaotic muck of saying, oh my God, like this is scary, or oh my God, I can't do this, I can't feel this is painful, I'm anxious, why do I feel this way, la 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 la. It is just running amok, a monkey mind. And so you want to practice tuning into the station that you want and repeating the things that are going to anchor you to safety. And so it may mean that you keep saying this and saying it and saying it and saying it for 10 minutes before your protectors release. So you sit open, you practice the breathing, and you repeat, I'm safe. I'm safe to be in my body. I'm safe to feel. I'm safe to experience this. I'm safe. I'm safe to feel. I'm safe to experience whatever I'm experiencing. I'm safe to be in my body. And that's step one. Like, that's the practice. Because until you get in your body, until you feel safe to be in your body, you can't access the stored cellular memory, that energy, in order for it to be released. Mm. And see, once you get to that stage, it's really easy to heal, because you don't need cognitive thought. You don't need to figure things out. Your bodies are brilliant. They know how to heal themselves. I mean, women, your bodies grow and birth humans. And there isn't thought that goes into that. And all of us, when we cut ourselves or burn ourselves, and let's say you don't have access to an ointment or to an ice pack, it's not the Band-Aid or the ointment or the ice pack that does the healing. It's your body that does it. And I believe that our bodies are so brilliant that the reason it creates this uncomfortable, ouch, painful sensation is so that you can't ignore it, because it's so strong that it takes your attention and signals to the rest of your body, ooh, this part of me needs healing right now. Go there, heal that. So I actually think that the ointment and the ice and all that is more of a protector. It's our inability to be with the sensation that we call pain.
Yeah, I love that.
And so the same thing, the things that we label as I'm anxious, or it was so painful, or I'm sad, I'm angry. My invitation to you is to ask yourself, how does that feel in my body? Where do I feel this anxiety? Oh, it's in my chest. Describe the sensations, all the felt sense around it. Meaning, does it have a temperature? Does it have a size? Does it have a weight to it? Is it heavy? Is it light? Does it have a color? Is it constricted? Is it open? Is it hollow? Does it have a texture? Is it prickly? Is it smooth? And so then what you're doing is you're being with it at the level of sensation. Just like if you did burn yourself right now or cut your finger right now, God forbid, and I asked you to describe that sensation in all those ways, you'd be able to. So same thing. Get away from the labels of emotion, good or bad, crying, sad, sad, angry, hurt, painful, anxious, happy, horny, and be with it more as like the felt sense and where you feel it in your body. And when you can observe it and get curious about it, you're giving all your loving attention there, and your body's signaled to go there and heal it. So, and then there's like, I'll leave it with this.
Yeah.
How do I know if my body's healing it? Well, there's many ways the body releases and heals. Uh, shaking. So if you ever experience your body tremoring and you're like, why am I shaking? It's your body releasing. Crying. So yeah, crying is a very, very powerful form of energy release. Burping, believe it or not, burping. And I mean like consistent burp, 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 burp. I've had clients sit there and burp for 30 minutes. Yawning is a form of release. Yawning does not mean you're tired. Actually, the reason we yawn a lot in the evening is because our body is releasing all that energy from the day and helping us downregulate so we can go to sleep. So, but if you're yawning while you're doing this, it's not because you're tired. It's a very powerful form of energy release. Laughing is a form of release. I've had clients have laughing attacks. That's a fun one. Catharsis. Sometimes we do need to have that good scream or yell. Like if you're angry, if you have a lot of built up anger, how is anger expressed in the world? You're either going to need to physically hit something, punch something out, or scream it out. So, and then sometimes the energy just dissipates. It just dissipates. So these are the ways that the body releases. I recently had a release myself where I didn't have the memory of what happened in my childhood. I just knew it was tied to something that I learned from my dad. And I identified the sensation of it was between my solar plex and my heart. And I observed that felt sense. It felt like a rod, it felt tight, it was warm, and I just kept observing it in all of its sensations. And I spent 30 minutes burping and yawning. And it cleared it out, and suddenly, and how do you know you're done? Because there'll be room for something new. And so I sat there and just burped and yawned and burped and yawned. And then I heard myself say to myself, oh, there's room for me. I'm happy. I'm vibrant. There's space for me. I am enough. There's like all this juicy, good truths of who you really are come through. So anyway, I gave a whole lot there. If you're not able to yet be with and feel the sensations and observe them, it just means that some protector is acting, and then you go back to what I coined priming yourself with safety, with the sitting safe, breathing safe, and repeating that safe.
Oh, such good stuff, Anat. I want to thank you, but before I want to touch on the fact that next month we're going to do a live call with the Shira Life. And so if some of this resonated and you want to get an experience of what it would be is like doing some work with Anat, we are going to have a live call, and we will announce those dates very soon. And where we can obviously follow you. You have Training Camp for the Soul is on Instagram now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You have Anat Peri on Instagram as well, and you have trainingcampforthesoul.com.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, my website. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very excited for those of you interested in joining us for that free class. We're going to guide you through some exercises. You're going to get to meet Chris, my co-facilitator, and maybe even get some one-on-one coaching support if you are up for that. So you'll get an experience of being guided through the work, and hopefully a release and space for something new in your life. Thanks so much, Jesse, and I appreciate all of you that tuned in and listened.
Thank you.